He told me once that grief has its own language. Mine was silence. But when I opened his hymn book, a verse was underlined in red. To everything, there is a season, I think. He knew I'd still be waiting for mine. This is the Vicar's confession, a sacrifice for the truth. Brought to you by The Hidden Chapter. Some stories aren't meant to stay hidden. We returned to Dunsmere, but not the same village we left behind. The snow fell heavier this year, and so did the silence. After Reverend Bell's death, something shifted. People locked their doors earlier. They whispered more carefully. And the chapel stood colder than ever. But Olivia didn't leave. She stayed, with questions that wouldn't let her sleep, and a letter that refused to be forgotten. What you're about to hear was never meant for the public. It was found in the final pages of Reverend Bell's own journal, hidden in plain sight. A story written in fragments, secrets etched between candlelight and confession, and it begins with a verse left behind by the widow. The morning after the snowstorm, Olivia stepped outside for the first time in 3 days. The sky was a frozen canvas, white, empty, waiting. She didn't wear gloves, didn't close her coat. The cold bit into her skin like truth cutting through silence. She breathed in the scent of smoke, melting snow, and something older. Her boots crunched over fresh snow as she walked the path to the chapel. No bell rang anymore. The silence had a sound of its own, but something pulled her forward. Not duty, not grief. The letter, still folded in her coat pocket, like it was breathing. Inside the chapel, the air was thick with wax and wood. Dust floated like forgotten prayers. Candles stood unlit. And on the pulpit, a second envelope. Smaller. No red ink. Just one word. Her name. She didn't open it. Not yet. Because deep down, she already knew. This wasn't the end of the Vicar's story. It was only the beginning of hers. Her name was written on the envelope, but the letter inside wasn't really meant for her. Still, it spoke to her in ways no one else could have heard. And with every line, the chill inside her grew colder than the frost outside. There was a name, a place, a warning, and at the bottom of the page, a question. Will you help me finish what I could not? Olivia folded the letter, tight, as if it could be unread. But something had been set in motion, not just confession, reckoning, and it had her name on it. She sat by the fire that evening, the letter still in her lap. She couldn't stop tracing the name, not hers, but one that stirred something. Abigail March. A woman no one in Dunsmere had mentioned in years. But the journal, the Vicar's journal, it spoke of her. Written like a man haunted. One passage caught Olivia's breath. If she ever returns, tell her the key is beneath the roots. Roots? What roots? She scanned the page for more, but the ink ran dry, literally. The words faded, like the writer had stopped mid-thought, or lost his nerve. Olivia lit a second candle. She laid the letter beside the journal and stared at them both. Two voices, from the same man, but one still had unfinished business. She rose, pulled on her coat, and stepped into the dark. Snow still fell. but softer now, as if it, too, were listening. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She only carried the letter, and the name, and a whisper in the back of her mind. If she ever returns. She didn't know what she'd find, but she knew where she had to go. She didn't wait for morning. She couldn't. Not with the letter burned into her hand, and the vicar's voice echoing louder than the wind. She crossed the chapel yard with only a lantern, and the name, Abigail March. The forest didn't greet her. It warned her, bare branches like fingers, reaching, grasping. A single path twisted beneath her feet, roots clawed through the snow. They weren't just part of the forest, they were the forest's memory. The letter had said, "Tell her the key is beneath the roots." But she'd never imagined they meant that literally. She found the place, where the earth didn't look quite natural, snow disturbed. The roots, swollen and gnarled, clung to something deeper than soil. She knelt. She dug. Her breath clouded like confession in the cold. And then, her hand struck something solid, not stone, not bone, wood, old, rotting, a box. It took both hands to pull it free, wrapped in linen, tied with what might have once been a rosary or a warning. She didn't open it. Not yet. Because before she could, she felt it. A presence behind her. Not cold like the air, but colder. Still. She turned. Nothing. No one. Just the wind brushing through trees that seemed far too quiet. She wasn't alone, and whatever she had just unearthed, someone else had buried it for a reason. She held the box to her chest and listened. For anything. For everything. But the forest held its breath. She came looking for a confession, but what she found was a responsibility. And now that she knows, she has a choice. What would you do with the truth if it came to you in secret? Would you protect it or reveal it, even if it shattered what was left? Have you ever carried something someone else buried? A secret, a burden, a truth that didn't belong to you until it did? She thought the box would bring closure, but what it gave was a burden, a silence too old to trace, now resting in her hands. Some truths come like wind, some come like stone. This one came like weight, not cruel, just honest. Olivia didn't choose this story, it chose her. The moment she read the line in red, the moment she stood in the chapel again. She was no longer a witness, she was a keeper of pages, of voices, of names that never asked to be forgotten. So now we ask you, have you ever carried something that wasn't yours, but somehow became yours to hold? A memory, a silence, a name you never said out loud, but still carried? Would you protect it or bring it into the light, even if it meant the silence would never return? The vicar's confession wasn't the end, it was the door, and now it's open, and something else is stirring. Not just guilt, not just memory, but something older, something waiting where the river bends, something left, unfinished. Sometimes the weight we carry isn't a punishment, it's a calling, to uncover, to speak, to name what was silenced, before it's forgotten again. If this story stirred something in you, don't bury it, even if it's small, even if it's soft. Truth doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be spoken. Let us know in the comments, or whisper it to yourself first. Just don't leave it buried. Like the story, if it left a mark. Share it with someone who's walked with silence. Subscribe to uncover the next hidden chapter, because truth doesn't rest in the grave, it remembers. This is the hidden chapter, and we're not done yet.